Welcome to the Magnetic Man podcast with your host, Daniel White, where we help men become men they can be proud of and attract women that they're proud to be with. I'm super excited for today's show and today's guest, Mr. Malik, who we are going to be chatting about his journey and transformation from where he started, from not great results with women, and the learning lessons and the insights and the strategies that he used to move himself into a place of dating abundance where he has options with women now. He can either select a partner from a place of abundance instead of scarcity, and he knows he has the skills that no matter what happens, he'll always be able to bring more women into his life. And that's really what I want for you guys. I think confidence comes from having options, and you want to create a skill set in your life to create options in your dating life. And there's many different ways to do it. And I'm excited to dive into Malik's story of how he made that happen. So Malik, welcome and thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Daniel. This is awesome. Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome, man. So I like to just start off every pod like understanding who the man was before he became this man drowning in dating abundance. Now guys are like, how does he know to say that? And like, wow, he's always with new girls and you can always get these girls. But I'm guessing it wasn't always like that. So
No,
maybe take us to back even now. I think you're in your childhood bedroom. You're busy visiting your parents at the moment. What
exactly.
what were you like growing up, like as a kid? What were you like in high school? Like let's start off there and then we'll kind of go through the journey.
Sounds good. Yeah. So
Mm.
I'd say from a very young kid, I had a very obsessive tendency. And so the thing that I kind of was obsessed with as a kid was music. And so I grew up classically trained in piano and learning a whole bunch of different instruments. I was in like jazz bands, I was in concert band. If it was related to music, I was probably doing it. I was taking guitar lessons, you know it. And young me was just obsessed with everything related to music. So I learned like production, I learned sound engineering, everything. It was just like this so exciting world with me. Plus, I had this knack for it and was definitely recognized by some talented musicians too when I was younger. So kind of threw my whole life into that when I was younger, and that's kind of where a lot of my focus was until I was like like I'd say like 16, and things changed a little bit.
Mm. Okay, so you had this obsessive passion around music. It was something that really lit you up, and that was where your main focus was. How did you kind of get into that? Did that come from your parents? You like went to a music class in school and you just really enjoyed it? Like, where'd that come from?
Well, my parents didn't get a chance to play music when they were younger, and they regretted it. So they wanted to make sure that their kids essentially had the chance. For a little context, I'm Jamaican, and my parents are from Jamaica, and they grew up very poor in Jamaica, and they moved here trying to provide a better life for like our family and stuff like that. And so they were just trying to give me and my sister the opportunities that they never got, right? And so my first step into music was my mom signing me up for a piano class and just seeing what happened. And for whatever reason, I just had like a instant knack for it, and so that's kind of like what started off for me there.
Nice, man. That's awesome. And I'm curious, did you have any like big dreams or goals in the music space? Did you want to be a musician? Did you want to be a professional XYZ? Like what were your ambitions around something you were so passionate about?
I think I just liked, I definitely say I'm a creative person, even from when I
Mm.
was like a little kid. I just liked creating things. So I don't know if I necessarily wanted to be a musician, but I loved having an outlet for all these creative ideas that I had throughout my life. And that kind of extends throughout everything from a kid to like where I am now with dating and stuff. Like my creativity, I feel like has definitely assists me in across the board. And so I feel like I like to make, for example, like, do you know what parodies are?
No, what's that?
So a parody is like a song that you take and you like strip the vocals and you add your own, but with like different words and stuff along the lines of that. So that was something that I like loved to do. Like I did that a lot. I actually had like a YouTube channel where I would just upload the nerdiest parodies you could think of, whether it was related to whatever it was related to at the time, whether it was music, video games. Uh, at the time, I got really into coding, which is my current job. Um, and that's kind of like whatever that was. It was just I made songs about that. And so that's kind of like
Yeah.
how I got into that.
That's awesome, man. I'll dig to check out one of your songs these days. Did you still make music these days, or that's not really a focus, or it's still a little
No,
hobby of yours?
yeah, it's still a little hobby. I like to write songs now. I just
Awesome.
write like little pop songs, little folk songs. One of my favorite things to do is I'll get together with like a close friend and I'll have them like, I think it helps with the musical experience. I could be like, all right, pick a letter and we're going to make a song in that key. And then we're going to pick a theme and then we're just going to write a song together. And so I've had some really cool songs come out of that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, man. Like a cool improv skill to have, which I'm sure goes over into the dating and helps with that as well. But
Oh,
I think
definitely.
there's
Yeah.
even a bigger point there. Like I think one of the problems a lot of guys have in dating when they're trying to learn this stuff is like they don't have any other interesting things going on in their life. You know, it's like it's cool that they focus and they want to build up their dating life. It's good to have that as a priority, but it's also still good to like have a laugh outside of that, have some hobbies because then you bring girls into that world. So like even for you as music and there's so many other cool things you've got going on, then the girl gets in your life, she's like, wow, this guy's got a lot going on. Versus these guys, they so focus on the dating stuff, but then like even if they get a girl, the girl, they're like they don't know what to do because all they focus is on dating, and now they got the girl's like gets bored. So I think that's a subtle point that a lot of people miss, but it's interesting that you still have those passions, and it's not like your whole life is only dating stuff, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It
Yeah,
was something that I was definitely conscious of because, like I said, I'm obsessive. And so whenever
yeah.
I pick up something that I'm like enjoying a lot or spending a lot of time of, I'm kind of trying to be mindful about how much time I spend doing it because of my obsessive tendencies.
Yeah, for sure. I guess that has a positive side as well. It's brought you a lot of success in many areas, and especially in the dating space, which we'll talk about now. But obviously, you set up until the age of like 16 or so, very heavily music focused, getting involved in a lot of things. What did it look like from a dating perspective or with girls? Like, were you like the shy guy, wouldn't talk to girls? Did you have girls that were friends? Did you have a couple girlfriends? Like, what was going on in that space at that time?
Yeah, so until basically I would say that I was very much so extroverted. I was very social, like homecoming king, prom king, whatever, all that stuff. And I just kind of got along with everybody at my school. It was a small school, so I'd say like maybe 300 people in this school in total, which some people are like, what the hell, that's insane. But everybody knew who I was, and so that was definitely like I didn't really. So at the time, like I said, I was so focused in music. Like girls were just until I was 16, it was just like not a thought. It was just like I was focused on creating stuff, and I can't stress that enough. I spent all my time doing that plus tennis, which was kind of like my other hobby that my dad, basically forced me to play. Um,
Did
so
you
that was
like it
kind
as
of
much, or was that one kind of more forced?
it
Or
was
you
it
still
was
liked
fun,
it?
but I mean, I
Yeah,
still liked it, but it was definitely more of a way to connect with my dad than it was like a passion of mine.
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, man. I hear you. So you are kind of like well known in the school. You're not like the little socially awkward guy in the corner or something like that. But women just aren't really a focus for you at that point. When does things start to shift? Do you start to become more interested in women? Does a girl start to come out and be interested in you? Like, tell me about that transition.
Yeah, so I will say that, when I turned like 15, 16, this is like what, 10th grade.
Mhm,
Of course as a kid I started having crushes on girls and stuff like that,
mhm,
but I
mhm,
never really thought about it. I think I had like asked a couple of girls whatever just straight up to be my girlfriends, as you do when you're a kid. And
mhm,
they said no, and I was like, okay. And I just kind of kept on trucking. But there was this one girl that I was like obsessed with for like 4 years. Like I was like, oh my God, this girl is amazing. And after like 3 or 4 years of being in the friend zone, we actually ended up dating for a year and a half. And so that was my girlfriend throughout the rest of high school. And other than, like parties and stuff where they would be playing things like spin the bottle and stuff like that, there wasn't really much focus on like sex and dating for me.
mm, mm. And was that first girlfriend like a window into some early experiences in terms of sexual experiences? Was
Yeah.
that the girl you lost your virginity to, or did that come
Yeah.
later?
Well,
Yeah,
actually, not my virginity, but it was the
yeah.
first time I did anything like sexual related.
Yes,
And I was
yes.
like, that was kind of like the oh shit, this is this is this whole other thing that I just had no clue about, just completely oblivious. But yeah.
Yeah. And what were your general like mindsets around that at the time? We're like, oh, this is interesting. We like very nervous because obviously guys come in with different things around like, oh, entering in the sexual realm. Some guys, it's kind of normal and comfortable for them. Where did the kind of chips land for you?
It was more of experimental. It was more of just
Mm.
like kind of like obviously I had masturbated before, but
Mm,
like
mm.
this is the first time somebody else was, participating, and I'm like, okay, how can I make this happen more, that kind of stuff. And it's like, what kind of things can you do, which also ties into my first time, which is also I would classify as experimental. But yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. I want to get into that story because it's always interesting to hear about guys' first time. But what would you say generally, like sex in your household growing up? Was it kind of like a taboo topic? Because I see a lot of guys battling with dating where it's like there was a very religious influence or like sex was super bad. Then they like bring on the sexual shame and they kind of really bring it into all their relationships. But other people, it's more kind of relaxed. Yours doesn't seem like it was that intense. Like, what was the relationship to sex like in your family or your household?
I wouldn't say that it was something that was talked about, but it's not
Mm,
like when I told my mom I had a girlfriend, she's like, "That's great."
mm,
Whatever, like, and
mm.
we had to talk about like condoms and stuff along the lines of that.
Yeah.
But it's not like she had a problem with me having my girlfriend over or other girls that I saw like after me and my girlfriend broke up and stuff along the lines of
Mm,
that. So I'd say my parents across the board were pretty chill, but like I
mm,
said, I was pretty focused on like
mm,
music
mm.
and tennis that they were like, "Oh, you have a girlfriend? When did that happen?" That sort of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's cool. It sounds like you had a very, I'm sure that there was issues from your childhood as there always are, but it sounded
of
like there
course.
was quite a solid base in a lot of ways. I was chatting to Indian PE on a podcast with him, and he said the first time you like this girl, they would like talk on the phone like landlines back in the
Hmm.
day, and his mom picked up the phone and says, "Don't you ever call my son again?" And he was
Oh my
like
God.
crapped on by her, like, "Don't you ever speak to girls like that?" Where guys get told by their parents, like a lot of people it seems who came from like an Asian background and who moved to the US, it's like don't focus on women, like school is the only thing that's important, and then they feel guilty about it, where it's cool, like even your parents like, oh, you got a girlfriend, like that's cool. It's like there's no like shame being
Shame.
brought
Yeah.
on. Yes, yes, which is a big thing. Okay, so now let's fast forward a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your first time, like what
Yeah.
girl was it with, how did it go down? Yeah,
Yeah.
feel free to
I'd
share.
say, yeah, definitely. So I will say that like college was basically like I'll say my sexual awakening is what I like to
Mhm,
call it.
mhm,
That's when I
mhm,
started, I joined, I remember, so once again, so like towards the end of college, I started playing video games a lot, and that was a
mhm,
big time sink and a habit that I had to shake off later on. But like I was spending a lot of time doing that. And I remember a friend when I was in college recommending me the show ABC Greek, which is basically like all about like Greek life, but TV show form. And then so for people that are not from America, Greek life is basically like fraternities and sororities where you go and you party, you meet other guys with similar interests, and obviously girls and stuff, and you just party and people drink, party, and have sex, right?
mhm,
And so after watching the show, I was like, shh, like, this fascination about like girls and stuff that you can do after thinking about like me and my girlfriend who had broken up because, when we went to college, we were going to separate colleges, so we ended things. And so that fresh in my mind, and watching the show, I decided I wanted to join a fraternity. And so, like, my freshman year, I remember, I'd say it was the second party we went to. It was like, all of the guys in the fraternity were telling the freshmen to invite girls from the dorm, obviously because we're around where all the freshman girls
mhm,
are, so they're like, invite them to the party, whatever. And so like I remember I invited one girl, but one of my fraternity brothers invited like 15 girls to the class, and so they got there first. And I remember there was one guy that was DJing, and there were like 13 girls in a circle on the dance floor. And so I wouldn't say that I have social anxiety. So like I kind of went in to the circle by myself with like 13 girls and kind of was just like dancing. And I was like, hi, I'm Malik, and just kind of introducing myself. And I think one of the girls just really just was like feeling me. And so let's say her name is Laura for now. And basically what happened is, we were talking, whatever. It's like I said, it's literally just a circle of girls. ends up being maybe like 20, 30 people in this like small basement, Um, and so she's like, oh, do you live here? And I'm like, no, but I have like a room that I crash in. I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, yeah. Do you want a tour of the fraternity, which was, became my go-to move in college? I was like, do you want a tour? And it was just my excuse to like, isolate, And so I'd go give a tour, whatever. I'm like, oh, this is my room. And then we go in my room and I close, And then so my first time, I definitely was pretending like I knew what I was doing, but I was faking it all the way. And so we did, we started making out and so on and so forth. And I just remember just trying so many different things, like whether it was, I don't know if I can swear or not
Go for
on
it. You
this. Yeah.
can. You
Okay.
can
I
say
just wanted to
anything.
make
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I started off with like, fingering and stuff like that. And then, I remember specifically because I look back at it so funny. I remember just trying to see how many fingers I could fit inside of her vagina. But I think it was her first time too, because she bled like everywhere. And I thought like I hurt her. And so like I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, there's like blood all over my futon, my pillow, and my sheets. And I'm like, oh my God. And we proceed to still like, she's like, oh no, it's fine, whatever, it doesn't hurt. And we proceed to have sex. I wouldn't say that it really felt amazing. It was more of just like a new feeling that I was exploring. And so that's what I'd say what my first time was.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really funny, man. It's like everyone, like you said, they like lots of people when it is their first time, like the other person doesn't know. It's like the
Yeah.
secret, like I can't tell anyone it's my first time. I got to pretend like I know what's going on. But we've all been through that. I remember my first time like was with my girlfriend at the time. I think I was about 20, but it almost happened like I don't know how long before, maybe a month before. We were like out one night with some friends at like a party, and then I ended up bringing her back to my home, and she was like totally down. And I remember like going in my room, and it was so embarrassing. It's like literally as I was putting the condom on, and like as I was like moving to like go inside her, because it was my first, I was like so
Mm-hmm.
excited. I ended up like coming before I was
Oh
even
no.
inside her.
Oh man.
But I, I don't think she knew. And then I tried to play it off. I was like, no, I just don't think this is the right time.
Yeah.
Like I really care about you and
Got you.
stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if she knew and she was just like poor guy, like it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was like I had a couple actually close calls like that where I was like I could and then couldn't get hard or
Oh,
I
are
couldn't get
there?
the
Yeah.
condom on, so it was just so embarrassing, really. But I try to like save some face, I'm like, no, it's just not the right time and like all this other bullshit. But then like a
100%.
month later, it ended up happening. And yeah, like I think people sometimes over obsess about their first time. It's like if they think they're inexperienced, like oh, it's got to be perfect, and I gotta
Perfect.
like how do
Yeah.
I make her
I gotta
come and
blow
like all
her
this stuff.
mind. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's like, dude, just shut up. Like you need to just get the monkey off your back,
Exactly.
because sometimes the expectation of what you got to do, it's like that stops them from even doing anything in the beginning. Where for you, it's just like sounds like anyway. It's like, oh, cool. I'm just gonna have this experience. It's new for me. It seems like it's new for the girl as
Yeah.
well. And you were just willing to try. You weren't like super obsessed and fixated on like making it amazing because it's your first time.
Yeah. Also, I didn't know how it was going to feel. It's not like I had friends that
Yes.
talked about it. So it was just like a
Yeah.
opportunity presented myself, and I was like, fuck it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it sounded like you kind of had that mindset a lot, like you said, there's 13 girls and you just went in there and introduced yourself. You didn't have a plan, you weren't running some strategy or game, but it's like you were at least stepping up and taking a shot, which I think so many guys don't even do today. They don't even do that, let alone what do you do once you're actually in there. But that kind of mindset of showing up and just like being a presence, it's such a good foundation that so many men can start with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that if I was going in with a shot, I don't even think I would have approached then because
Mm.
I was just going in because I was like, none of the other guys are talking to them. Why aren't they
Mhm.
talking? I'm just gonna go
Mhm.
talk to them. I didn't have like oh, I'm trying to like pull or oh, I'm trying to have sex. I
Yeah.
was just like, let me introduce myself and break this awkwardness.
Exactly. And look how you were rewarded for that.
Yeah,
Sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes you do need a strategy and learn some things and like be more effective. But sometimes it's just like, I'm just going to take a shot. There's a girl sitting next to you on the aeroplane, or you're on a holiday with some family and there's some girl on the beach. It's like, dude, just go take a shot, because the more you trying to strategize and, yeah, but I read this thing online and this is what this YouTube video said. It's like, you don't even end up going in there.
yeah,
So
no,
let
exactly.
that be base one. Go mess it up a couple times, and then, okay, cool. How do I get better at this? How do I be more effective? But just fail forward a little bit, mess it up a couple times, and it just drops that weight and expectation and judgment off your own shoulders, and you can operate so much better from that space.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, obviously, learning more about your story now. We've obviously chatted quite a bit before, but it doesn't seem like you're the typical like guy who got into game because like he was just getting friend zoned and like no girls liked him and you're just this weirdo. Uh how did you find out about like game and stuff like that? Or like how did you get into that? Why did you even get into that? It didn't sound like it was a like what was the reason for it? So yeah, talk to us a
yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah, so while I was like a super social person, right, and I could talk
Mm.
to anybody, I'd say like one of my superpowers is I can like just have a conversation, like a platonic, obviously normal
Mhm,
conversation, but
mhm,
with like
mhm,
anybody. And
mhm,
when I was in college and then, after I had my first time, I realized it's different when now all of a sudden my brain is like, okay, how do I make sex happen? Right.
mm,
As soon as
mm,
all of the thinking started coming in, I realized I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And so I started off, I remember I started reading, um, The Game by Neil Strauss.
mhm,
I read that.
mhm,
Still have that as a PDF on my computer, and I have Models by Mark Manson. And so I read those two books and kind of trying to get this idea of like theory of game and like pickup and all of that stuff. And I also, when I was in college, there was this YouTube channel that was called Simple Pickup.
mhm,
That was a thing, and essentially, I used to watch a lot of their videos, and they had this course called Project Go, which is basically idea was like you go and conquer your fears, and just it was basically to challenge like approach anxiety, like just basically get through that. And essentially, we used to do these like me and my friends signed up, we split it at the time, as broke college students. It was like $5 a month. We are like, okay, we'll split it, it'll be fine, and we will just go and do these challenges together. And I remember going through that, and that's kind of like when I started learning about game and actually started practicing and talking to girls in that way.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that was the start of your journey. Also, for me, it was also reading The Game. I think some like younger guys in the early 20s, like people don't even read books these days. But I
Hmm.
think for like us around our age, it was kind of like that was the thing that catalyzed so much. Just like a lot of guys found like RSD, and you can argue about what they teach and stuff, but they did make a big name and they brought a lot of men into the space, which I think the game did as well.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if it was the same for you. Like when I read The Game, it's like say like people talk about like SMV, and I'm like, okay, I'm like a six,
Yeah.
or like maybe on a good day I'm a really a seven. It's like if I could get
Yeah.
like a girl who was at least a seven or like an eight, like I'd be so happy. But the thing for me when I read that book, it was like it almost like gave me hope. It's like this is what I look like. This is my life. I'm not from a rich family. I'm not like super jacked. I'm like skinny guy with freckles who's short. Like I'm like, cool. I just got dealt not a good hand. Like I just got to kind of accept my fate. But when I read that book, it like changed my expectation. It gave me hope. It's like there is a way to shift this. There is a way to get much better results than your current reality. And again, like
Definitely.
I'm not going to go into the strategies of the book necessarily, but it was such a good thing for me. Like, oh, there is a way to get out of the hellhole that I'm in, which was my
Yeah.
mindset at the time. What were some of your thoughts or insights or realizations from, say, even just reading The Game?
I think that some of my insights was like one, like the whole idea of like, SMV and stuff along the lines of
Mm,
that. I wouldn't say that while I was like a very social person, I don't know if I would say I was the most confident person, like self-confident, right? I didn't think that I was the hottest person around, but like based off of this thing in this book, like if you don't know, I'm 6'2", so like I'm definitely on the tall side. And at the time, I was like pretty lean, I kind of, from playing tennis and running cross country and stuff. Obviously, I was like a little toned, and so stuff along the lines of that, where I was like, I never really had gone and had a girl like say like, "Oh my God, you're handsome," but I definitely was like written myself off. I'm like, am I ugly? Or I don't know. Based off this book, like I'm not like the stereotypical uh like Chad, if we want to put in those terms, right? So
Mm.
I think that put into terms that realizing that's not the only thing that matters was
Mm.
like super powerful for me.
Yeah, for sure, man. I really like that. Yeah, it's not the only thing that it does matter, but it's not the only
Only
thing that
thing, yeah.
matters. And it's like thing that's hard to control. Obviously, hit the gym and like get in physical good shape, but like actually working on your mindsets and your communication skills, like to me, those are things that create massive levers in your ability to communicate. So it sounds like you didn't have a problem like being social, but your issue was more around like, okay, cool, how do I be more sexual? How do I have more intent? How do I not just be the cool, fun, social guy, but how do I be the guy that women are like, wow, like I want to jump into bed with that guy?
Yeah.
Was that kind of your main reason for getting into game?
That is exactly the reason I got into game, and it was something that I wanted to figure
Yeah.
out. And it's not something that I'd say I fully figured out myself. I've made
Mm-hmm.
significant improvements,
Mm-hmm.
but I still feel, compared to like where I was, let's say like 4 years ago, I'm so much better now. But yeah, that was definitely
Mm-hmm.
something I struggled with, and I'd say that like even if I was to identify like my number one problem 4 years ago, is that like I would go into an interaction with the girl and I try to be, I go in with the intention of being sexual, and if the girl didn't immediately seem receptive, I'd immediately just fall back into my previous behavior, and sometimes this previous behavior was just not like it's like basically for amusement. It's not like charming, It's like how do I
Mm-hmm.
keep the girl entertained rather than
Mm-hmm.
attracted? That was kind of like what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, because that's a risky switch to make. Like, I think it's a good starting point. It's like, at least be interesting to the girl and entertaining. Like, most guys can't even do that. They're trying to
Hmm.
sexualize, and the girl's like, I don't even want to talk to you,
Yeah.
But then
Hmm.
it's like, once girls are actually like, I want to talk to you, you seem like a cool guy, then sometimes the risky thing is like you don't want to lose that. You like start playing it safe. It's like, well, at least
Exactly.
she doesn't think I'm a creep. But if I start to sexualize or go for the kiss or try pull her, now I might lose the validation that I already have that she thinks I'm a decent guy. And I
Yeah.
see people who with that problem, like that's the hard thing for the shift for them to make. What was it similar for you?
It was very much so the similar thing for me.
Mm.
Also, like growing up, my sister used to do dance classes, and so I would do them with her. So I knew how to dance from a very young age. And so if I would go out to a club, for example, like I go up and talk to girls, and then I just start dancing, whatever. And then if I ever felt awkward, I just start dancing. Like it's just kind of like my thing. And it became kind of like this a whole idea of like a dancing monkey. Like it's like watch
Mm.
me dance, and then obviously some girls would be into it, but other girls would just like sit there and laugh, and it just didn't feel good because I knew it was like I was putting up a wall. That was like my defense mechanism. I was like, oh, you'll like me if I do this, rather than being my authentic self.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think we all do that to some extent, even the idea of like SMV, it's like, oh, like my muscles, it's like, oh, like, oh,
Oh,
do you
what's
see
up?
that? Like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, what's up? And it's like, does she actually like me or does she like my muscles? Does she actually like me or does she like my fancy apartment? And there's nothing wrong with doing all those things. Build yourself an awesome life as a guy, like, be in great physical shape, like, build your wealth. That's all cool. But there's levels to confidence, and
Yeah.
it can start off like very outer, like, oh, like your story is way less embarrassing than mine. At least you had dance moves, which is pretty cool. But like I remember for me when I was like 15 or 16, like I got like this watch. It was like a Casio like silver watch,
Ooh.
and like I got like two compliments on the watch, like something from like a random guy. Where it's like the watch had like a light where you like push it and it was like a
Yeah.
green background. So it was like, oh wow, man, that's like so
That's
cool.
sick.
And then like, and I was out like, well, I was talking to girls once and I like did it, and another girl was like, wow, that's so cool. So it's the same strategy. I remember once I was at like an under 18 like party, like a club, or like 16, and again like everyone's kind of dancing like in a circle, and I'm like, how can I offer value?
Yeah.
And it was like so embarrassing. Like every time I'd like be like looking at my watch, you know, and I'd be like, is anyone like noticing my cool watch, you know? And I'm like, just every 10 minutes, like, what's the time? And they're
Time.
like, who's checking me out? But that's what happens when you don't have that authentic confidence. It's not easy to get. It takes time. It's like, look at all these other things that other people think is cool. People think my watch is cool. People think my dance moves are cool. But
Yeah,
it's like, I don't actually believe it myself that I'm attractive, that I'm authentic. So I'm trying to use these other pieces to impress other people.
yeah,
And there's a way to do that from authenticity. But when you don't have that like solid ground, then you're starting to grab at other things outside of yourself.
definitely. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I totally hear you. And do you still have that watch?
I don't still have that watch, but that would be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like $100 or something. It was nothing fancy.
No, still.
Um, yeah, for sure. So how did you kind of? Because obviously, I know you're in the dating space and you help a lot of men now, which we'll talk about more at the end. But how did you specifically get into the text game stuff? Obviously, I know you
Yeah.
help out in the playing with fire group. Like you've done the simple pickup, you've done a couple approaches and stuff. When did you start focusing on like getting specific on texting and getting really good at that? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So okay. So I went through the rest of college. Whatever. I got a
Hmm.
girlfriend. Whatever.
Hmm.
Dated her through most of college. She ended up cheating on me, and that was kind of like a
Hmm.
big blow. And I was like really in love with her because at the time, I wouldn't say that I had a lot of experience and I knew what I was doing, but I kind of like pulled all of my chips, all in one on one table and kind of like gambled on this, and I ended up hurting a lot. And for a long time, I thought I needed to work on myself and kind of just focus on my career instead of people like say get in the gym, but I decided to focus on my career, and I told myself that I wasn't going to like really date or really do anything until I kind of figured that out. I like moved to a couple of different places, got really into nature, got into hiking and stuff. And it wasn't until I moved back to New York City that I really started getting into game and stuff. So this is about how old am I? 5 years ago. I was
Hmm.
24, and that was like I spent 4 years kind of just like, or 2 years rather, really focused on my career. And I came back, got a really good job in the city, and I was like, cool, I'm in the city. I was going out partying. I had some friends from my fraternity that were living in the city now. I was going out. I was like, cool, how do I do that? My friend told me to download Tinder, which I knew was a thing, but I thought it was like a joke. Like, oh, I met up with this girl from like I thought it was just like a meme. I didn't think people actually used it. I thought people met at bars, and I didn't really get any results with it, so I just kind of like wrote it off. And I remember the pandemic came around, and that's when bars closed. So like the very few girls that I was meeting, that was no longer an option. So me, as I'm sure a lot of people, kind of just went to dating apps to see like, is there anything that can happen there? And I realized I was having like standard conversations or anything along the lines of that. But nothing was really happening, and I definitely hadn't just like hooked up with a girl from a dating app. And that's kind of when I discovered, like, doing my own research. I looked up and I found Playing with Fire, and I saw, that those videos, and I ended up buying the first version of the product. And I remember just seeing it, and it was kind of like a kind of thing like, oh my God, people just say things like that over text. Like, that's kind of crazy to me. And so that
Like
was
the sexual
the
things.
sexual things, or like the,
Mm.
hey, come split a bottle of wine on my romantic balcony. I was like, people say this? Like, like this happens? And so then I did it. And I remember I tried, and I remember the first time that I hooked up with someone on a dating app during the pandemic. And so that's kind of when that happened, then it was kind of like a door opened. And
Mm.
that's kind of where I've been traveling ever since.
Yeah, and the rest was history, as they say. I think it's so important to note because like people will see you, and I've seen you like giving guys feedback in the group and helping people, and it's like it's really really high class stuff. And people think you just magically were always like that. They
Yeah.
don't realize that you were also that guy who was like, wait, is this real? Is this a scam? Like I need to do my research. But then when you start to have those epiphanies, and even you get that first result or two, like that can set you off, and your whole life can change, your whole understanding, your whole perceptions can change, but like it doesn't just happen overnight. I think a lot of people, they just want like instant success with women. You know, it's like, oh, it just happened. Like, oh, you have it easy. It was always easy for you, you know, but it's like, no, even the guys that are already good, they all had to start off at the beginning, but they saw like a chance, they saw potential, and then they doubled down on that. Where other guys are like, yeah, well, show me all the results I'm going to get, and then I'm going to start like committing to the process. And they kind of got it backwards. You know, it's like going to a fireplace and saying, well, just give me a little bit of heat and then I'm going to put some wood on you. It's
Yeah.
like, no, you got it backwards. You got to put the wood first and then the fire comes later. Which you kind of had that mindset. You newbie going in, but you've changed dramatically over the course of that. I don't know if you have anything to add on that point.
No, I think you hit the nail right on the head there.
Yeah, cool. I want to bring it back to something. I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but when you say your girlfriend broke up with you and cheated on you, you know,
Yeah.
I made a post once. I think we chatted about it, where it's like how the love of my life hooked up with my best friend, because I think it's a very common experience for a lot of men. You know,
Yeah.
like we try to pretend like I'm this macho, like nothing ever happens to me, but a lot of guys, they're not that attractive to women, and they don't understand female psychology. They don't know how to keep a woman satisfied and happy because they're still figuring out their own lives. And this is a common experience: girls cheating on guys, girls leaving guys, and you can become bitter about this, like, oh, women, they're all these like bitches, and like,
Yeah.
oh, like deep down the red pill, like in a negative way. I think the red pill gives you a lot of good insights, but you don't have to become a victim learning about it.
100%.
Yeah, but just talk a little bit about like your experience. Like, why do you think it happened? Do you think like you were too much of a nice guy, like too nice, or you just like it was just a freak thing? Like, yeah, tell us a little bit about it, and we can trade some heartbreak stories back and
Yeah.
forth for a second.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Essentially, the reason that it happened was that she was so me and the girlfriend at the time, we were dating for like a year and a half, and she decided to do a study abroad.
Mhm.
And so when we did study abroad, I missed her. At the time, I was the president of my fraternity. It was basically like, and it was that status in the fraternity was definitely bearing fruit, I'll say. Like girls would just
Mhm.
come up to me and she'd like, oh, you're the president? And it was just like, I didn't have to do anything. And I was like, obviously very tempted by these opportunities, but I had a girlfriend at the time. And I remember at the time I like asked her to like open it up, our relationship, not knowing what that meant. All I knew is that I wanted to have sex with other women at the time, and I didn't want to cheat on her. So I asked to open it up. We had long discussion about it. We decided not to, and we decided we were just going to keep it chill. And I was like, I've written off all these girls that were just like basically throwing themselves at me because I was the president of a popular fraternity. And she comes back and she tells me that when she comes back from Ireland, she tells me that she cheated on me and that we need to break up. And I just remember being like starstruck and also pissed, but not pissed at her, but pissed because I threw away so many opportunities that I could have had for something that I thought was worth it. And she just basically like shit all over that. And so I just remember being very, very mad and heartbroken. I remember going to a bar like 2 weeks later and seeing her making out with a guy on the dance floor and stuff like that, and crying in the bathroom at the bar because I'm seeing she was like that's when it like set in that she's been over me. It's not like a new thing. It's like this has been there for a while, and I remember my self-worth just felt was like absolutely in the gutter. It was in trash. I was drinking a lot. I started drinking a lot. I started eating a lot. Gained so much weight, which I had to like later on like fix, and a lot of self-confidence issues came from that. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's thanks for sharing that, because I think a lot of guys will relate to it, like different faces, different places, but the story is a lot of similarities. So it was interesting with yours, there was a long distance aspect to it. It wasn't like you were living together and she's
Yeah.
like secretly texting guys behind your back, which doesn't make it hurt any less, but yeah, often with long distance, the physical distance does make people's mind wonder, like, hey, let's open this up just so like I don't feel bad. And who knows, maybe you want to do something and we're good
Exactly.
with it. But she agrees to the no, we're keeping it same. You pass up all these opportunities, and then at the end she's like, nah, I didn't fucking be faithful.
Faithful.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like, yeah,
What the
it's like
hell?
betrayed.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
betrayed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was a while. I didn't date anybody like a relationship for like 6 years after that.
Because there's a lot of hurt that comes with it. I've shared sometimes, like after I used to go to breakups, like before I would like drink a lot, and like I remember one girl like broke up with me, and like I didn't tell anyone, but that night like we were having pre-drinks before going out to a bar, and I was just like smashing
Slanking.
the tequila and the vodka. Everyone's like, "Hey, like all good? Like you're going a bit hot?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's just have a good time." And then I like remember I like passed out before like we even left to go
Oh
out,
man.
but
Damn. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the real reason was I was hurting so much, like so heartbroken, like something just been ripped out of my chest. And it's like you don't really get taught how to deal with those feelings, like in society. It's like you're in all this pain. It's like this hurts so much. It's like numb it, like
Yeah.
alcohol. And then
Alcohol.
and
Yep.
then you said food,
Yep.
They can be so porn, smoking weed, whatever it is. Because I remember like 6 months later, I was with this other girl. She broke up with me. I wasn't drinking at the time, but I was smoking weed. And then the first thought of my head, like, let me just smoke a fat joint. It's like
Yeah.
change my state, cover up what I'm feeling. A year later, I was dating this other girl. She broke up with me. I wasn't drinking or smoking weed, and I was like pretty healthy. And the first thought in my head was like, I just want to eat a fat, juicy, greasy
Yeah.
cheeseburger, And that
Exactly.
was the first time in my mind I caught it. I'm like, wait, like I'm going through these same painful experiences, but there's always a different thing, whether it's alcohol, weed, or food, bad food, or like porn or whatever it is. It's like, that was the first time I was like, I see what you're doing, my mind. I can see my safety mechanism. Yeah, luckily there was a level of awareness. And I said, no, I'm just going to go lock myself in my room this weekend and I'm just going to sit with the pain.
Yeah.
I'm not going to numb it anymore. I'm just going to feel it and all that betrayal and all that hurt. And I just sat and like basically cried in my room that whole weekend. But that was like a shifting point in my life. Like I shed so much of that pain because I wasn't running away from it anymore. And it's easier said than done. Like hard stuff happened in your life. It's easy to run to other things. But yeah, I think there is also a deeper healing invitation when going through a breakup, to sit with those painful feelings and not try to numb them out in some way.
Definitely. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time working through that and the trust issues, going to therapy and things along the line,
Mm,
just talking about it. It like affected how I used to approach women to like there were so many ways that breakup like really
mm,
affected me and I had to later on rectify. But yeah,
mm,
that's kind of
mm,
during the pandemic that all
mm.
a lot I'd say that was kind of like my how do I call it? That was kind of like that was my kind of like return back to like and finding my
Mm.
way back to like abundance and feeling like a centered authentic man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so
Yeah, and it's weird because now I didn't know you back then, but I would presume you're way better man. You have a way better understanding of yourself, your own confidence, and female psychology than you did back then. So it's
definitely.
like in the moment that totally sucks. It's like probably literally the worst thing you've ever experienced. But then it's like looking back, it like tears down your identity. And then as a man, when you rebuild it back, whether that's a couple of weeks, months, or even years later, so there was always kind of like this hidden benefit and like being cheated on or having some girl fucking trash your
Destroy your
heart, which
heart.
we've
Yep.
all experienced. But it's like there's a deeper invitation. It might take a while. It's not going to happen overnight, but years later, usually you look back and you're like, wow, like there was a lot of things I could have been better as a man. And like without that negative experience, like I probably wouldn't have become the man I am today, which sounds like what you're saying as well.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely aligned with that. And but
Mm.
that was a long and hard journey to get there.
Yes, yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, because I see guys doing the opposite. They'll like go through this breakup with this girl they really cared about. Then like 3 days later, they're like, "Yeah, I'm totally over her." I'm like, are you
Are
though?
you? Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah.
yeah, I'm like, even 6 months, like a year later, depending on the relationship, I'm like, it's not weird to miss her or like feel a little bit hurt, but then it's again this macho thing, like, no, I'm totally over her. It's like, dude, like you can be vulnerable, you know, like we'll go through this from time to time. Like, just say you're sad, like just say you miss her. Stop trying to deny that fact, because then it just keeps going on longer than maybe it needs to.
That
So
and it
yeah, there's so
affects
many like
like,
different pieces.
hmm
Yeah.
I was gonna say like it affects like the future people you date too, right? Like you're still working
Mm,
through that, and then you
mm,
meet someone new, and then you're still dealing with that, and it affects your conversations, the way you look, the way you
mm.
perceive your relationship, and all that stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. And it's also like I think I had this, and I've done a lot of work on it. But like sometimes you can also get like quite bitter, you know. It's
yeah,
like this girl like hurt me, and it's like I'm gonna show those women, you know. And then like who knows, maybe that's a good motivator for a time. It like gets you out your shell, and you learn some things. But I also see guys like they're holding on to this thing, and then they never want to open up and get vulnerable to women, especially in like the PUA dating space. It's like
hmm
I'm just this like fucking machine who just gets women all the time. But then there's also a part of them that's scared to get vulnerable again, because they know the last time that happened, it fucking
blew
ended
up in their
really, really
face. Yeah,
badly. Yeah. So it's understandable that you feel that way. But then again, there's a deeper invitation, like, you're going to give it a try again. You're going to open up again, even though you risk that you could end up shattered again. But most guys are like, and it took me a long time. I'm not like sitting here on my high horse. I'm not judging. But it's like, okay, I'm gonna give it a go again. Like, this is scary because I know what could happen here. But hey, this is life, you know. I want to experience the highs and lows, and instead of just being in my closed off box, like no one's gonna hurt me again. But then you also don't feel like the depths of love or joy or connection, because you're scared to let people in and get close to them.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was just going on a bit of a monologue there.
No, it's fine.
Um, but yeah, like you said, so it wasn't like a conscious decision, the online dating stuff. It almost was an environmental thing. The pandemic happened, people aren't really going out and talking. Okay, cool. I'm gonna get good at this. What were some of your early learning lessons or realizations? Maybe there's a guy who's in your position right now listening, where it's like, he's just starting off with the online dating. He can see there's a great opportunity there, but like, what were some mindsets or attitudes or things that you would tell yourself when you were starting off back then to be successful in the online dating space?
Well, the one thing that I would tell myself is that you need to like really think about the way that you portray yourself. I know people are like, "Oh yeah, your pictures are important," but it's not even about like how nice or high quality your pictures are. It's about how you're perceived and like how you think, how the way you portray yourself makes other women feel, right? I feel like that's the thing that's more important, right? Because if I think that PWF is like doing a video on my profile right now, because if you look at me, like I wouldn't say that I'm like a conventionally super attractive guy. I'm definitely a little chubby and stuff, a little along the lines of that. And so, but I still have like great success within. It's because like the pictures that I chose, to portray myself as this very confident guy that, that's not afraid to show these different aspects of stuff. Like I love to bake. I have a picture where I'm baking. I have pictures where I'm playing music, right? And these are all different aspects. And girls, that's what the girls that I match with comment on. And I realized it's less about focusing on like the hottest girls you can get, and it's more about attracting the woman that you actually, like you said in the beginning, that you're actually proud to be with. And so,
Yeah, that's such a cool point. Let's unpack that a little bit, because this can be one of the traps of the dating space, and even what I was teaching for a long time. It's like you learn like a structure or strategy, or like these are the pictures that work, but it's almost like you totally not being yourself. And I don't mean like, oh, you should be like this weird little cringy guy. It's like, put the best version of yourself forward. But if you start putting out things that have nothing to do with you,
yes,
even the girls that might be initially interested, there's such an
congruence.
incongruence, you know. It's
Yes.
like I'm like using this briefcase and like jumping on an
Yeah.
airplane. It's like, cool, that's a great picture. But if you're some dude who's like gone on 5 dates before, and like girls don't even like you, like there's such a big difference, and the girls can smell it. I would even argue they can smell it over your texting before they even
Yeah.
meet you. Like this is a funny observation I've made. I can't scientifically prove it, but it's like they sense incongruence even over texting, not even literally face to face, which is when they sense it even more. So what I hear you saying is like you optimize your pictures to be really good, but you also like highlight the best aspects of you as a person, not trying to like portray this image of what you think
Women want.
girls like. Or
Exactly.
yes, yeah. So is that a big like problem you see guys do where they're trying to portray something that is very out of alignment or incongruent to who they are?
Yeah.
Could you talk on that a little bit?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of guys that are that that watch Alex's videos. Alex's videos are great. They've helped
Mm-hmm.
me and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And he's definitely very how do I say? He's gears guys towards getting hookups, right? He wants girls to
Mm-hmm.
hook up
Mm-hmm.
with the hottest girls. That's like what he really focuses on. That's awesome, right? But not everybody is looking for that, and not everybody is not everybody needs to be that guy that like bangs I don't like to speak like this, but
The
like
fuck
yeah, the
boy.
fuck
The
boy
fuck
that just
boy.
like
Yeah.
bangs the
Yeah.
hottest girls, right?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of things that get lost in translation is how do you portray yourself as this genuine confident guy who also likes to have sex. Like it's like the sex is
Mm.
like I'm a sexual person, but it's not the only thing you need to know about me, right? Where
Mm.
versus before it's more about I remember I used to portray myself as like I used to have like a book, a picture with a book reading like the complete Kama Sutra or things along the lines of like the shades and the leather jacket and things along the lines. Just trying to look like, yeah, this guy looks like he would totally rail the shit out of me. When, while that may be the case, I wouldn't say that when I go on a date, that's the vibe I give off. It's more like
Mm.
this until, the moment feels right.
Yeah, yeah, I love that kind of matching it to your personality, like being authentic to you, because a lot of people mess this up, and that's what also creates polarity.
Mm-hmm.
There's two ways guys do attraction. The one is almost like, and we've spoken about this a lot, and there's definitely a time and place for like calibrating to the girl's blueprint.
Yeah.
It's like understanding her and then, okay, cool. How do I communicate in a way that's effective to her? But I think it can also get dangerous where you go
Too
too
far.
far,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like you lose your authenticity, and it's like the girl's like, I like the girl's like, who are you? And it's like the master seducer says, whoever you want me to be,
Exactly.
and it's like whoever you want, that's who I'm going to portray myself as. And then this other girl wants someone else, this is who I'm going to portray myself as. And that's different from calibration, from understanding a girl's blueprint and then matching her. But there should be girls who come across your baking picture and think, what a fucking loser.
Yeah, that's fine.
Like,
yeah.
that's totally good and normal and natural, because there's other girls who are going to come across and like, I love that about you.
Yeah.
But men don't really understand this polarity piece, which I think is authenticity. You're polarizing. Hey, I like Joe Biden. Everyone's like, I hate that guy. I love Trump. And then some other guys like, I love Trump. And then like, I hate you. I like Joe Biden. But it's like, take a stand. Understand yourself, who you are, and then be okay with that. And people not liking you, where guys are like, I just want to get no rejection.
Yeah,
like, how do I put myself so all the girls like me?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens? None of the girls like you.
Genuinely. Like they'll sleep with you.
Yes.
I have so many guys that I think that the most common thing that I get with guys, especially from PWF, is that like they've gone through PWF, they understand the texting, they can get a girl back to their house, but after the first date, the girl just disappears. And they're like not sure why. And it's because, and I have to help them break it down and realize that they've optimized, they're not being their authentic selves, they're being this person that this guy that fucks girls on the first date, right? And it's like, how do you move past that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really healthy thing. Like maybe that's where you start off, but I think there's better ways to do it. So I like using the analogy of like seduction as like a book cover. So or like a book, sorry. So there's two aspects. You get the cover and then you get the actual book. So sometimes in the dating space, men focus too much on the cover. So in online dating, it's probably even amplified. It's like with the briefcase, like getting on the airplane, like what are those first 10, 20 texts I send her so she's ready to come over and have sex? It's like, okay, cool, that's good. Have a good book cover because that draws your initial interest in. But then the problem is when the girl actually gets to know them, when she reads the actual book, it's like, oh,
Shit's
like
lame.
the cover looked really interesting. I watched the trailer of the movie and it looked so good. But when I actually watched the movie, it was shit. And this obviously happens in the space I'm in, more like cold approach.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm this guy who does all this stuff. But then the longer the girl hangs out with you, and sometimes she'll literally give you a first date, and maybe the first time you guys sleep together, and then she's like, wow, this is how this guy was portraying himself. This is how he
It
actually
is.
is. And then the girls don't want to see you again. And
Exactly.
that's not a nice place to be in.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you seen that a lot with like your clients and the stuff you work with?
Very much so. To the point where like I have multiple guys who are their whole goal is to portray themselves as this how I describe it? Like I don't want to say sex god, but this guy who knows all about
Fuck boy.
fuck boy.
Yeah.
It's just like this guy who knows how to fuck. He'll fuck you good, and you're gonna be happy. You're gonna be coming back for more before you know it. Like you're gonna be dreaming about me. That sort of thing. And they dial that in their messages, in their texting, right? And they go to their dates. Sometimes they just go straight to the girl's house, or the girl just comes over straight to their house. They have what I like to call mediocre sex after hearing what they do, and then they're like, I don't get it. Why isn't this girl? She seemed so into me before. Why isn't she texting me back? And I'm like, seems like that's all you had to offer, which is not something that necessarily every girl wants all of the fucking time, right? What happens outside of that?
And
Yeah.
yeah. It's like, do you have anything to offer outside of the sex? And sometimes the sex is not even that great. Like the way they're portraying themselves, like you said, the girl thinks it's some like sex. And like there used to be a thing where like, oh, do you love like multiple screaming orgasms? And the guy's like so new, he doesn't even know what the fuck he's doing.
Yep.
And the girl's like, yeah, that sounds great. And then she has an experience like, dude, that was nowhere near what you were piping yourself up to be. And then they're like, yeah, but I slept with her. And then they're like, send her the text message, like, that was fire. Then the girl doesn't want to see them again. They're like, but what? We slept together. I thought she was into me. But there's so much more going on than just that. And you would probably be better off not trying to portray yourself as this, like you said, sex god. Be a little bit more congruent, even though you're putting your best foot forward. Then the girl's like managing her expectations a little bit. Versus like, this is how epic I am, and then it's like, no, that's how you actually are, you know?
Yeah, and I also try to explain to the guys, I think that the core like belief that I like to do is like having a woman should chase you, right? But like a lot of guys don't know how to set up their interactions with women so that happens, and it's just all about like I tell them it's like all about leaving things to be discovered. Like, sure, you are a sex god, but don't go up front saying that. Let her fucking find out. Then she's gonna be like, what the fuck? You were hiding this and this and this and this. Then it's just gonna be so easy for her to just continue chasing for more. So
yeah, I love that strategy. So it's almost like the cover is actually the least interesting thing about the experience. It just needs to be interesting enough to someone say like, okay, I'll
take a
check
look.
the first page or two. Yes, I'll take a look. But then the more she spends time with you, your value just goes like this. Where most guys are on the opposite paradigm.
Yeah, exactly.
The most interesting about them is the cover, and then the more the girl gets to know them, it just goes down. So yeah, I love that. I love that, getting girls to chase you and more over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of been the biggest thing that I've seen in terms of like, and that's kind of affected but the advice that I usually give for texting, I like to call, I don't know if I'm going to say that I coined this phrase, but I like to call it instead of like, people like to say like DHV, which is basically like displaying higher value for anybody who's just not like super into pickup. But it's like, I like to call it what I call value bombing. Right. But what is value in that sense? If we're not talking about sex, it's like, are you a family person? Like, oh, I just got finished hanging out with my mom. I made her dinner. Like I say things like that, or like, oh, just got finished with the gym. Now I'm making me and my roommate some lunch. Like it's just things that showing that like I have people around me that care about me and I'm doing cool things, or like, oh, just packing for a trip I'm going on. I'm super excited. Right. Things that like prompt the girl to be like, oh, what are you making? Ooh, where are you going? Like they want to know more. And that's what I call value bombing, right? It's just that you're giving value, but it's also like a bait for her to ask more and continually be like, oh, I want to hear more about that. I want to hear more about that. And then what also happens is that the girl's always just like, okay, so like when are we meeting? When are you free? I want to meet, figure more about
Mm,
this in person. And so that's kind of what
yeah.
my texting has turned into. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, man. It almost ties back right to what we were saying in the beginning, where it's like you already have these interesting things. You're already a cool guy. You already have a personality. You have hobbies. And then you're bringing that guy into the dating space,
Yeah.
you know? It's not like some guys, I think they're just sitting at home all day. They don't have friends. They don't have anything going on. They're like, what, I got to text the girl,
Hmm.
you know? And it's kind of like, dude, you need to get more of a
Yeah.
laugh. And that'll help you with the girls as well, because guys get too fixated and it's all coming from like this neediness, and this girl's just going to solve all my problems. And who knows, maybe you're at that stage now, but like with Malik and other guys that I know, it's like the longer you go on, it's like, yeah, it's cool to get better at dating, but it's like it's not going to like solve all your problems in life. Like you're still going to have problems, so might as well build a life you find interesting and then add on dating as well.
Exactly.
Because I love that, you know, like guys, it's like, when are we meeting up for our like romantic date? Like just finish the gym. It's like, hey, there's a time and place for that, but it's also like build the story of who you are, you know, and it's not making up a fake story, but it's like sharing things about your life. Value bombing, as you said, which I think is a great phrase. And then the girl's like, she's slowly getting more interested and more interested. And then at the point, like she's closing you.
Exactly.
When are we gonna meet up? When are we gonna do this? Versus like, I just gotta snatch and go like quickly, like
I
get
got
the
a soft
message and then I'm
close,
gonna
hard
like send
close.
it or like,
Exactly. Yeah.
yes, yes. It's like all like logistics, and then it's like a lot of flakes because the girl's not really invested in you. Whether you spend a little bit more time on the text, she actually gets to know you. She's so much less likely to flake in the long run. So yeah, I really like some of the positives in the way you frame it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Looking forward a little bit now. We're heading into 2024. We're almost there. Who knows? This might come out at the start of 2024. But what would be some advice? It could be one thing, it could be three things for guys who want to crush it in the online dating space in 2024. Like, what are two or three things they should really focus on? You kind of already gave one in terms of like portraying themselves more authentically, but whether it's to texting or mindsets or beliefs about women or themselves, like, well, what are two or three things guys could take away to make 2024 their best dating year?
I think, okay, so I'd say that I'll say three things. The first one, if you, and this is
Mm-hmm.
going to be related to online dating specifically, since that's mostly what
Yes,
I'm
yes,
focused around.
yes, yes.
I'd say if I'd say so. Of course, the how you portray yourself is important, but understanding, like you said, how to read a girl's blueprint is way more
Mm-hmm.
important than you may think it is. Understanding that a girl that's
Mm.
super confident is pretty cool if you just straight up just ask her out on the date within the first few messages, versus a guy who seems like very feminine and very shy. Needs to spend some time getting to know her, and kind of knowing when to take which approach will drastically improve like the number of dates you go on, and also like the effectiveness that you have with the dates that you go on,
Mm.
and also
Mm-hmm.
shows you
Mm-hmm.
how you need to act on the dates. And then the second thing that I would say is the most important is that when it comes to attracting a woman, the most important thing is getting their investment in you. And so there's so many different
Mm-hmm.
ways that you can do that, but the number one way is qualification. And I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
guys throw out the word qualify her, blah, 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 all this stuff, but they don't understand what that means. It's not like people think like qualifying is like, oh, give me the basics. You have any tattoos or like things along the lines of that? And it's like, no, the idea of qualification, if you like look up the definition, is like making sure this person meets this um, accepted set of needs that you have for yourself. And if the girl meets that, then that's good, right? You approve of it. That means she's qualified, right? So saying things like understanding, for me, I like a girl who likes to bake. I like a girl who likes to cook, because I like to eat. I like a girl that's passionate. I like a girl that's driven. And so like I kind of phrase things where it's like I'm doing that, um, and I try and phrase it in a way where she has to basically say that she's doing it too, or something along the lines of that. And that allows me to kind of like screen girls, and when see girls see that it's a fit, they're like, ooh, that's interesting. I want to know more, and then more, and then more, and then until they're like, all right, let's meet. And so I'd say that's like the number
Mm-hmm.
two thing that's really important. And then the third thing that I would say is that um, understanding how to build sexual tension if that's not something that you really know how to do. Because this is something that I've learned in the last 2 years, and I still want to continue learning in 2024. Um, things along the lines. I was just talking about this with somebody yesterday, but like understanding like how the depth of your voice, your tonality, like the speed at which you talk, the way that you look, your eyes, everything, the way that you touch, just thinking about how everything you do is conveyed, even if it's just like on 1 or 2 dates, and just thinking, was that like making it clear that I'm like sexually interested in her, or was it more platonic? And then seeing what happens if you make a drastic change to that, and being experimental in that way. So I'd say like those are like my three things. If you want to crush it, if you can get those three things down, you're definitely along your way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love that last one on sexual tension. I think I wrote an article the other day about how important tension is in sexual tension. And to me, the root problem is like men can't handle tension. So how can you create sexual tension if you can't handle tension?
Definitely.
Their biggest fear is like, what if there's an awkward silence? It's like, what if there's an awkward silence? There's probably going to be some tension there. And you want to be okay with that. You want to be able to not only, guys are like, I want to avoid that at all costs. It's like, I want to actively create that just by like
Exactly.
staring at a girl. And as you said, there's a thing with the eyes and you get the gaze and everything down. But it's like, they're trying to like talk their way into sexual tension. And there's a way, verbals you can use, but it's like, oh my gosh, you're so sexy. I really want to pull your hair and have sex with you. It's like, those words are very sexual words, but there was no
Sexual.
sexual intent in what I
Exactly.
just said there. No sexual tension. Versus I could say something like, I just love the way you make that salad. Makes me so hungry. It's like that had more sexual tension, and it's a bit weird, like chatting up another guy on a podcast, but it's like there was tension there, like you said, there's a way you slow your voice down, and there's a way you add pauses, and there's a way you enhance your eye contact. But guys don't know how to do that, and they're just trying to add like some verbals on top of that, where there's a lot more to sexual tension than that. So I think that was a really good point that you mentioned there.
Definitely, yeah. I
Yeah,
think, yeah, you hit the
yeah,
nail right on the head. It's also very funny. I did that exact same thing where I told somebody to say
yeah.
something in two separate ways, and the guy was like uncomfortable with himself saying it. He was like, "Oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
that felt
Mm-hmm.
weird." And I'm like, "That's imagine how
Yeah.
the girl would feel."
Yeah, yeah. If you felt weird, like she's fucking, you don't even want to
Yeah,
know how she's feeling. And a little tip, if guys are listening in, that they can do with this is like literally just say a boring sentence and like leave spaces in between what you say. So if I'm like, I woke up this morning, can be like, I woke up this morning. And it's like, what do I feel like in my body? I felt very calm and relaxed, but I've done this a lot. But guys will be like, and it's like, woke.
look,
And it's like, they speak so quick because it's like, they're not like coming from that calm, centered, grounded place. And they're like, and it's like that they have that agitation energy in them. So when you just even practice something like that, notice in yourself how you feel. Like even you almost start like giggling at the
yeah,
start because it's like creating
chin,
tension in the conversation. And all of this stuff, what most men don't realize is it's like David D'Angelo had this famous saying, like, attraction is not a choice. When you look to create sexual tension, like the girl doesn't logically think like, wow, he's creating sexual tension now. Do I want to get involved in it or don't I want to get
unless
involved
they're a
in it?
sociopath.
It bypasses, yeah, exactly. It bypasses her rational mind and just goes straight to her biology, and she starts getting turned on and she doesn't even know why. So I'm just kind of going on a tangent here, but I would agree with you. Like sexual tension is one of the biggest things guys have no idea about, how to actually be sexual. So yeah, I would agree with you. That's something you need to get down to crush dating in
Hell
2024.
yeah, fully agree.
Yeah. Awesome, brother. I really enjoyed this conversation. Loved hearing more about your story and your journey and your insights and your trials and tribulations along the way. Anything to add in before we wrap this up?
No. I think that, as
Mm,
long as you put yourself out there and give yourself a chance to actually
mm,
succeed, you'll be surprised with what will
mm,
happen. So if anybody's like
mm.
nervous
I love
about going
that.
into dating
Yeah,
next year, give it a shot.
yeah. Yeah, give it a shot. It's not as scary as you think, and there's some epic rewards waiting for you if you do take that chance. So, Malik, where's the best place for guys to get in contact with you? You were talking about Blueprint
Hmm.
earlier. I've worked with Malik, and I've learned from him even in his dating blueprint, and it was pretty mind blowing even to me. So, I definitely recommend you guys jump on this. But where's the best place to guys to get in touch with you, follow your stuff, get coaching from you? We'll obviously plug the links in down below this, but yeah, just share some information on
Yeah.
that.
The best way if you want to reach me is to like hit me up on Facebook. It's just
Hmm.
facebook.com/Malik, Malik. I also have a website if you want to go and check it out. It's called Eros Mental. And it's all about focusing on teaching guys how to build meaningful relationships and building authentic confidence with women. And so it's just Eros, mental.com. And so you can go check out my stuff there.
Mm. Awesome. Definitely, I highly recommend everyone go check that out. We'll put the links down here below so you can just go click on them and follow his stuff, follow his work. And if you're thinking about it, I highly recommend you guys grab some coaching with him. It'll just shorten your learning curve and help you get results quicker. So, yeah, Malik, thanks so much for jumping on the Magnetic Man podcast. It was great to have you on. And yeah, enjoy your
Thank you. You
Christmas.
too. Happy holidays.
Cool. Bye bye.
Later.